Alright, so how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. And just so you guys know, the Kotkaniemi video is coming soon. I just need a little bit more time to finish it. Like I said, those videos take about 6 hours to make. So these videos actually got done first. That's why, so kind of bear with the Kotkaniemi, it is coming. But today, as you can tell by the title, we are actually going to see what would happen if every NHL player went back to the team that drafted them. So, before I start going through this video, if you guys could drop a like, drop a comment, that would mean a lot. This video took a long time to make, probably took about 3.5, 4 hours just to do the rosters for this thing. So that would be absolutely wonderful if you guys could do that. Would mean a lot for the video. But basically what I did is I went through the entire NHL and moved guys around back to the team that drafted them. So I had to move some guys up from the AHL to play in the NHL because some teams didn't have enough guys that were in the current league to cover their team. But honestly, things got really crazy, and I'm super excited to see how a season sim is going to play like this. So we're going to go through every team. We're going to look at the teams and go through that. I'll try to be as quick as possible. So here we have Anaheim, where you have players like Carlson there. Overall, fairly a decent team. Defensively, Anaheim also is a very good team with the players that they have from all time. In net for the Anaheim Ducks is Freddie Anderson and John Gibson. So again, really good goaltending tandem there in Anaheim. So next up is Arizona, and they did get the acquisition of Blake Wheeler as well as Max Domi back. So again, looking very good up the front two lines. They kind of trail off on the second line there a little bit. Defensively, didn't really get a whole lot better. But when we look at the goalies for them, it's Scott Darling and Louis Domingue. I believe that's how you say his name. I don't know. It's French, and I'm not trying to be here and try to be professional about it. So Boston was one of those teams that got absolutely significantly better with the acquisitions of players like Phil Kessel and Tyler Seguin, as well as Joe Thornton and Milan Lucic. Just a crazy overall team. Like, they're so deep offensively. You go defensively, they get Dougie Hamilton back. They kind of trail off there on the third pairing, and you'll see why I'm saying trail off at 70 to 8, 9 overalls for some teams. Goaltending, they really took the hit, though. Stuka Rask was a Maple Leaf draft pick. Malcolm Subban is the only one in the game that they have, and Zach McIntyre there. Buffalo's a team that, again, didn't really change a heck of a whole lot. They kind of lost more players than anything else. Thomas Vanek, their acquisition, but Jack Eichel. And they really fall off. They're a really low overall team on those forward lines. Defensively, Tyler Myers goes back to Buffalo. And Zadorov as well there with Martin Fizik. And in net, Ryan Miller and Linus Ullmark. Now, this one hurts me the most because Calgary is the worst team after drafted players go back to, but we won't be for long. And basically lost a bunch of good players on the team. Johnny Gaudreau, Monahan, and Tkachuk there, the first line. Ferland comes back, Backlund there, as well as Sven Barchisi, Morgan Kilmchuk there, Mark Jankowski, Sam Bennett, and Coughlin, and Elias Matteson, and Megan Pie. I don't know if you say that. Defensively, we really took the hit. We lost a bunch of defensive players, which sucks. Phaneuf's back, though, and we have Patrick Seeloff. And in net for Calgary is Curtis McElhinney and John Gillies. Carolina, team, again, that's probably middle of the pack. To get Eric Stahl back on the team, as well as Jeff Skinner. Elias Lindholm is going back as well. Andrew Ladd there also. Not really like he's a big name player anymore, so it's not anything too crazy. Noah Hannafin going back once again. Jacob Slavin. So defensively, again, a really good defensive core there in Carolina. Still not the best in the league, but Annette Cam Ward is starting for them. Chicago, team that got a lot better with this. So definitely fixing a lot of the problems. They get Toivo Teravainen back, Jonathan Tace, Patrick Kane. That's great first line. Brandon Saad, DeBrincat, Nick Schmaltz. And you're going through, Andrew Shaw's back on the team. Ryan Hartman's back there. I guess he never really left. Joachim Nordstrom, Philip Deneau, Troy Brower as well back in the Blackhawks organization. But they do get back Dustin Byfuglien and Nicholas Jarmelson, which helps them out a tremendous amount on the back end. And Corey Crawford with Craig Anderson backing him up. Colorado really bolstered their first two lines of offense. Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Landeskog, we knew that was there. But with drafted players, Paul Stastny, Ryan O'Reilly, and Matt Duchene fill in that second line, which is just crazy. They kind of fall off after that as this guy here, Mason, is only a 68 overall, as well as Sergey's a 67 overall. Defensively, they're actually not bad on the first two lines. Kevin Shattenkirk and Will Butcher there, as well as Johnny Boychuk. But they do fall off on that third pairing, though. In net for Colorado, again, lower overall goalie of Peter Budaj starting things off for him. So we have Columbus, and Columbus did lose Bobrovsky and Artemi Panarin, but they do get Jakub Voracek and Rojo back. So there is that, as well as they're looking to the team. Derek Brassard there, and just overall, a lot of the same Sabres players, or Sabres, Columbus players that are always there. Dennis Savard there back on defensive pairing again, once again. So they don't really change much defensively. Steve Mason and Korpisalo are their goalies, though. So take that how you will. It's Steve Mason. So the Dallas Stars took a pretty big hit, honestly, with losing players like Tyler Seguin and Alexander Radulov. Really hurts their offense quite a bit. They do get James Neal back, as well as Louis Eriksson. Not like that really matters all that much, but they did take a big hit. John Klingberg still on there holding things down defensively. Gained Trevor Daley on the back end and Patrick Nemeth. So there is that. But Mike Smith in net, that's a good goalie that he might be able to steal the show for him because they're lacking in the offensive category. Now, here you have the Red Wings. Now, they're really a team that can't really get worse than what they played last year. So they get players like Calle Yarncroke on the team, as well as Thomas Tatar back once again. Defensively, nothing really happens. They're still kind of... Defensively, nothing really happens. They're still kind of on the light end. Valtteri Filppula filling in there on the third pairing. Jimmy Howder and Peter Mrazek in net for them. Oh, what the Edmonton Oilers could have been if they just figured out how to deal with things in the first place. We could have been seeing this all throughout the league for years to be happening if they knew how to handle players. Taylor Hall, McDavid, Eberle first line. Just crazy. Nuge, Draisaitl, and Jesse Puljujärvi. Cogliano, Riley Nash. This is one of the big powerhouses. They do fall off on the fourth line there with 77 overall players. Defensively, not really the greatest. They weren't the greatest at drafting defense, but they have Devin Dubnyk in net, so that will definitely help them out quite a bit. If they just would have held on to certain players, Edmonton would have been such a dominant team in the NHL. So we have Florida, one of the fringe teams that, didn't really get better, but didn't really get worse. They have Huberdeau, Barkov, Dadonov as their first line, so that's good. Zach Hyman actually on the move to Florida, and Donskio, I believe is how you say his name. Probably wrong on that. Go ahead and rate me in the comments for it. But you can see they're their forward lines. Defensively, again, they're pretty solid defensively. J-Bo on the back end, helping things out for him. Jacob Markstrom in net, starting things off. So the goalies is better than some teams, but still not great. Moving on to the LA Kings now, they advanced themselves quite a bit. They added Wayne Simmons on the first forward line there, as well as Dan Boyle as a third line center, which definitely helps them out quite a bit, because Dan Boyle is a perfect third line center for any team. Defensively, they have a better core. Colin Miller there on the back end, as well as Thomas Hickey. Definitely helps out that second line. The third line is half decent too. But in net for them starting off is John Quick, followed by John Bernier. Minnesota up next, another team that I think got, a little bit better. Lost a couple players there in Suter and in Zach Parise, but they gained players like Alex Tuck is back, Marian Gaborik is back, as well as Eric Halla, John Larson back in Minnesota once again. Guys that are helping the team out, Cal Clutterbuck there on the forward line, Matt Dumba, but they do get the big addition in defense with Brent Burns coming back to Minnesota, the team that picked him first overall, as well as Nick Leddy, another good defenseman. Their defensive core is really good. Khudobin in net to start it up with Darcy Kuemper backing him up. So Max Pacioretty is back in Montreal once again after a week and a half of being traded. He's back. Galchenyuk once again, and Brandon Gallagher, that first line, back in full swing things. Montreal there is a team that really falls off after the first line. They have Lettinen back, Montreal is a team that really falls off there after the first line. I'm expecting them to be probably one of the worst. But look at that first pairing that could have been. PK Subban and Ryan McDonough back in Montreal. Mikhail Sergachev, they didn't get rid of him for Jonathan Drouin, of all players. And Ron Hainsey, which is surprising because he's like 80. But, honestly, Carey Price, Yaroslav Halak, this team is a team that doesn't have the scoring power up front, but has the defense to just absolutely be a team that surprises you and makes a playoff rush because of who, Carey Price. New York Islanders up next. John Tavares leaves Toronto and goes back to the Islanders to play with Josh Bailey and Nino Niederreiter. Okposo there as well. Team looking to halfway decent. Blake Como and, falls off there in the fourth line like most teams do. Big Z back in the aisle as well. We go and look in net. Lugo back between the pipes for the Islanders. New York Rangers definitely, I would say, probably improved themselves a little bit there. Carl Hagelin, this is like an older team from 2012. That's what it looks like looking at the paper, is everything's back in place the way that it was once in the past. Lundqvist still starting, Montoya backing him up. they're going to be a bottom of the league. On up, probably our first big major powerhouse in the NHL. Really lacking at the center position. They just don't really have good centers, but, you know, they have the support from all over. Alexander Radulov, Patrick Hardquist both returned to the Nashville Predators, but that's not what makes this team so scary. This is the defensive core of the Nashville Predators. First pairing of Ryan Suter and Roman Josi, Seth Jones, Shea Weber, Matthias Ekholm, Ryan Ellis. You cannot get better than that. That is a ridiculous defensive core. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention Pacioretty is still in net, so they're going to be hard to score on. Zach Parise heads back to New Jersey, as well does Adam Henrique, and you know, a couple other players there. Like Alex Kerfoot and Reed Boucher, all players that are going back to New Jersey to play their career. They get Adam Larson back, they lose Taylor Hall, so they're definitely looting that trade. And they have a problem in net with Scott Wedgwood being their starting goalie. They don't really have any but goalie that they've drafted. Corey Schneider's kind of their thing. You know, probably not going to be a very good team. So everybody in Ottawa decided, you know what, all the problems with Mike Hoffman, yeah, we're going to go back and we're going to just not deal with them at all. We don't care. We're going to go back and play in Ottawa. So Hoffman back, Zibby, as well as Stone. That's a sick first line there. Nick Foligno, Ryan Zingle, and Jakob Silfverberg, Patrick Eves. Like, they added a whole bunch of players and got a lot better. Marian Hossa back in Ottawa. Erik Karlsson also deciding, you know what, I don't really care about San Jose all that much. I'm going to go back to the Sens. We're going to fix the problem here. Robin Lehner, Brian Elliott in net. The Philadelphia Flyers are another team that got quite a bit better. You know, honestly, JVR was picked up in the offseason there. Jeff Carter going back to Philadelphia. Justin Williams is always helpful. Patrick Maroon, a good player there to have on the wing. And, you know, the rest of the line is just players that, you know, are good depth players for the team. Gosper and Provorov are both right there. Travis Synan. Defense doesn't really change a heck of a whole lot. Lucas Spiza added in there. In net is their problem, with Stolarz being their starting goalie. The Pittsburgh Penguins. They do lose quite a bit of firepower in this, being, you know, Crosby and Malkin being their only two big forwards. They get Kasperi Kapanen back, which will probably help them going forward in the future. But again, honestly, being such a good team for so long means you're not getting the craziest draft picks. Jake Muzzin, though, helping out that defensive core with Goligoski and Matta being the second pairing, and two other players that were picked up off of the thing. The one benefit for them is their goaltending tandem is ridiculous, with Fleury going back and Matt Murray. How are you going to be able to stop them when they have two starters starting all the time? Patrick Marleau decides he's going to go back to San Jose and play with the guys that he spent his entire career playing with. So a team that didn't really get much better. They didn't really get any big name players. As you can see, we have a 66 overall there on the fourth, or 68 overall on the fourth line, sorry, there. And defensively, they kind of lost assets, if anything, there. In net for them, though, Thomas Greiss and Stalock. St. Louis, I would say, is probably another one of those powerhouse teams, with the exception that they're lacking in the center position, with Lars Eller being their starting center and Carl Soderberg. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. David Perron there once again, TJ Oshie, Tarasenko, and Schwartz. That's a really good top two lines that they have going for them. Parayko and Pietrangelo, that's really good. Eric Johnson, former first overall pick, Eric Johnson going back to play with Ian Cole, and defensively, they are both a really good team. In net for them, though, Ben Bishop and Jake Allen, so they're not even hurting that bad for goaltending. Coming up next on the Tampa Bay Lightning, they stay pretty much the same, as their drafting has been just ridiculous. Still Stamkos, Kucherov, and Palat, Nemastenkov, Jonathan Drouin going on back, Braden Point. Just a crazy team overall. I don't understand how they do a whole lot. Their defense takes a hit quite a bit, with Victor Hedman being their absolute stud. Everybody else under an 80 overall. So that's where Tampa Bay is going to have a little bit of a problem. Vasilevsky's their starter. Connor Ingram's their backup. So the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't actually get John Tavares, and John Tavares is not a Toronto Maple Leaf. But the core of the Toronto Maple Leafs stays together with Will Nye, the hockey guy, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner. That's still there. Connor Brown, Kadri, and Alexander Steen. Jimmy Hayes there. Komarov. You have players going back to Toronto that haven't been there in a little bit. Morgan Riley and Anton Strawman. That is going to help things out. They did lose Jake Gardner, but they did get Luke Schenn back, so there's always a plus side. And in net, Tuukka Rask, which is a fantastic upgrade over Freddie Anderson and James Reimer. The Vancouver Canucks, another team that has a very promising prospect pool, but not a very promising list of players in the NHL. Adding the likes of Ryan Kessler to the team and losing people. But Hunter Shinkaruk's back, so there is that. The defense isn't looking that great for them either. In net is Corey Schneider for them, which is a plus, and Thatcher Demko backing them up. Now, we have the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Vegas Golden Knights is a team that just entered the league, and there's a bunch of players in the NHL that also entered the league without the draft. So they're on the Golden Knights. If players were just signed, they are on the Golden Knights. If they didn't get drafted and decided to sign a contract with an NHL team, they're on the Knights. Like Panarin, Marchessault, and Tyler Johnson, Tyler Bozak, Connor Sheary. Like, this team is ridiculous. Matt Zuccarello, Raffle, Chris Kunitz. Like, they're really good. Giordano, Chris Tanev, Torrey Krug, Nate Schmidt. They have a ridiculous decor. Still not as good as Nashville's. But in net, Sergei Bobrovsky and Martin Jones. That's pretty damn hard to beat. Now the Washington Capitals get to rewrite their biggest mistake probably in franchise history. I guess, I don't know. I would consider it probably one of the biggest mistakes they made in franchise history. And that was trading freaking Philip Forsberg. He's back, and he's playing with Kuznetsov and Alexander Ovechkin. So that's going to be absolutely crazy. Marcus Johansson there with Nicholas Backstrom and Andrei Burakovsky. Tom Wilson, the $5 million man, down on the third line there, playing with Matthew Perreault and Cody Eakin, Jake Verana. They're really good, really deep. Dmitry Orlov, John Carlson, Mike Green, Kyle Alsner, also a very good defensive core. And in net, Braden Holtby and Semyon Varlamov. So we're at the Winnipeg Jets, and what I decided to do with players like Ilya Kovalchuk, who were drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers, the Thrashers moved. So we're at the Winnipeg Jets now. What I decided to do with players that were drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers was also put them on the Winnipeg Jets because it's the same franchise, just moved over. So Ilya Kovalchuk is, I believe, the leading franchise leader for the Winnipeg Jets, technically, because Atlanta is the Winnipeg Jets. So he's on the Jets. Kovalchuk there with Scheifele in line A. That's going to be a lights-out first line. Evander Kane, Brian Little, and Nick Ehlers. Like, that's crazy. Kyle Connor, Adam Lowry, Nick Patan. Again, very, very deep. Defensively, Josh Morrison and Trouba, Bogo, and Braden Coburn. They kind of fall off there at the third line pairing, but that is expected. Finally in net, we have Connor Hellebuck and Kauri Lehtinen. So we're in season mode now, and what I'm deciding to do is I'm going to sim an entire season and see what happens. Because that's my biggest concern. Like, that's what I'm so curious to see. What team is going to dominate the NHL? Everybody's back on their team that drafted them. They have things to play for. Let's see what happens. Alright, so the season is complete. We have our Stanley Cup winner. I'm not going to reveal who that is just yet. Let me know down in the comment section who you think won the Stanley Cup. It's obviously none of these teams that are on the screen right now, so you have a better shot than just guessing out of thin air and not knowing. New Jersey did the worst, and Toronto, Detroit, Buffalo, Philly, we're right there. Figured we were going to be doing bad this season. Carolina, we move our way up. Edmonton, the team that they are, again, surprisingly did pretty bad. Typical Edmonton. Pittsburgh, they're getting an 18th spot playoff punch because of the division situation. Arizona missing, Minnesota missing. But Dallas, Winnipeg, Tampa, Montreal, Vancouver, of all teams, Vancouver. I guess having Corey Schneider back in Vancouver helped a lot. The Rangers, Blackhawks, Bruins, St. Louis, and you would expect these teams, Ottawa, in the playoffs, and they did freaking good this year too. The Islanders did it really good as well too with having John Tavares back. So I don't know how Henry Ecker, this little kid, made it on the Canucks somehow. He made it on the roster. We're just going to get rid of that stat altogether and just act like he's not even there, because that's a mistake. But Sagan led the league with 98 points, followed by Phil Kessel. So he was feeding Sagan all year. Tarasenko right there. Brock Besser at 86. Scheifele, again, good. Top players you'd be expecting to put up top points at this point. I don't know how Pavel got 79. Not a clue at all. Kuznetsov there, Stamkos, Pavelski. Players you'd expect to have a lot of points. Goal-wise, leading in goals was McDavid with 46. Sagan was right behind with 45. Tarasenko put up 42. And Patrick Kane put up 40. So good seasons by all of them. Ecker freaking had 63 assists. So let's just give it to Backstrom, because Ecker's a mistake. I don't know how that happened. Nicholas Backstrom, 60 assists for Josh Bailey as well. He's a 76-point player with John Tavares. It's impressive. Pasternak there on Boston. Again, big line for him. PK Subban, Erik Karlsson, Pietrangelo, Scheifele, Niederreiter. So let's take a look at goalies right now and see exactly what they did and who the best one was. So Mike Smith had the most wins in the league with 41, which is, he's a really good sim goalie in this this game. So let's go ahead and set this to 20 games and see what the highest save percentage is. And it's Pekka Rinne, Darcy Kuemper, Bobrovsky, all with over a 930, which is impressive. A goals against average. Worst goes to Peter Mrazek with a 941, and Adam Morrison 931 for Peter Mrazek, a 341, 337 there. So let's take a look at goals against average. Actually, Peter Mrazek has the worst with 341. Morrison 337 for Spencer Martin. And then we get down to the 3s at McElhinney. So that's always fantastic. So Pekka Rinne also has the best goals against average with a 1.72. So we didn't even get 2. Freddie Anderson there, Bobrovsky, the goalies you'd expect to perform good in front of good team. Obviously, Pekka Rinne had an insane defense in front of him, and that's probably why that's so low and his save percentage is so high. So let's take a look at the awards right quick. So Tyler Seguin wins the Art Ross. The Hart goes to Pekka Rinne. James Norris to Pietrangelo. Lady Bing to Tyler Seguin. Calder is going to go to Ecker. Again, just really screwing everything up for us, this little kid. Here's your 5 minutes of fame, buddy. Vasilevsky gets the Conn Smythe, which I guess that kind of ruins who is in the playoffs. So Vazzy is the Conn Smythe. Vezina goes to Pekka Rinne there. William Jennings as well, Pekka Rinne. Eriksson gets the Masterson. And the Selke went to Ecker. But I'm going to give it a Bergeron because Kopitar won it that year and last year, and that's kind of how it goes. It goes Bergeron, Kopitar, Bergeron, Kopitar, Bergeron, Kopitar. So it's Bergeron's this year. Ecker doesn't matter. Ted Lindsay, Pekka Rinne. And Connor McDavid gets the Maurice Richard. So there you have it. There's the Stanley Cup champion, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won in 4 games over Vegas. Let's look how they got there real quick. So in the Western Conference, St. Louis played Chicago. That's a matchup we've seen once or twice. Nashville against Winnipeg. Again, that was a big matchup. Vegas against Vancouver and Anaheim, Dallas. So Anaheim beats Dallas 4-2. And the rest of the series were 4-1 wins for Vegas, Nashville, and St. Louis. So Nashville and St. Louis went on to play. That game went 6 games. Nashville takes it. And Vegas swept the Ducks to win 4-0 over them, and they go on to the conference finals. Vegas plays Nashville in the conference finals, and they're going to walk away with that one. The undrafted players go into the Stanley Cup final on a team together. Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference real quick. Washington played the Rangers. They won in 4. Tampa Bay swept the Islanders. Boston swept the Montreal Canadiens, and Pittsburgh beat the Ottawa Senators. Going into the semifinals of the Eastern Conference, Boston sweeps Pittsburgh, and Tampa takes Washington to 7. Tampa then goes to play Boston in the conference finals, and they sweep them, and they punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup, where they play 6 games against Vegas and beat them. So 2 years in a row, Vegas makes the Cup, and no Cup for them. Still an impressive franchise nonetheless. 2 Cup final appearances in 2 years. I don't think anybody can say that. So let me know what you guys thought of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, this video took a long time to make. Let me know what your team did. And yeah, I think it was super fun. I think it's cool to see what would happen if teams had every player that they continue to, like the Edmonton Oilers. Imagine if you guys never got rid of anybody and figured out a way to make it work. It'd be a great team. Yeah, I enjoy poking fun at Edmonton a little bit too much. But thank you guys for watching once again. If you did enjoy the video, definitely be sure to leave a like. Tell me what you want to see from the channel in the comments section. And if you're new here, definitely click the subscribe button and hit the post notification bell where you're at it. All right, that's all for me today. Hopefully you guys have a good day. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.